You're watching TelecomTV from the 2017 TIP Summit in Santa Clara. And I'm joined now by Caroline Chan, VP and GM of the 5G Infrastructure Division at Intel. Caroline, good to see you on TelecomTV again.
Good to see you again.
I should also add board member for the Telecom Infra project as well,
Right.
which brings me on to my first question, which is, Intel's been a board member of TIP since its inception.
Yep.
Why? Why the interest? Why did you throw your weight behind TIP?
Well, we see TIP as a natural evolution of NFV SDN. It's a crossroad between IT and networking. You know, having Facebook being a part of the founding member, it really started driving some of the next step for telco. We always said, look, telco industry needs to evolve, needs to be more cloud native, and I mean, having Facebook on, if you see the success of OCP, Open Compute Platform, really changing how the OTT industries cost model, performance, uniform their supply chain. We think TIP will do the same, and so far TIP has been very successful. If you compare the growth, compare TIP where it was last year, what is this year, the membership, the TIP Summit, and the number of working groups ranging from traditionally what we think vRAN, open cellular, backhaul, to AI, machine learning, millimeter wave. So it's really, and people in practice, it really become a wide-ranging working group, and with TEAC, community lab, acceleration fund, the startups, and the number of operators as well. Like 2 weeks ago, we just got Akamai joining. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So now it's a very diverse kind of community.
And you said there's a lot of project groups. There are about 10 or 11 project groups. It's very broad coverage, and yet there seems to have been, in a short space of time, a huge amount of work actually achieved. Where does Intel play? What are the interesting areas for you? What groups are you focused on?
Well, we are co-chairing the Open RAN and the edge compute. Couple of things, we have the technology, the ingredients and also people ask us to join because they feel like we have something to contribute, given a history of in the CPU platform, and edge compute ultimately really means some of the cloud content gets closer to the edge. So they feel like we have something, you know, to contribute. We also participate in a couple other groups, millimeter wave. We joined the AI group because this is a very, you know, there's a lot of investment happening in Intel in those areas.
Now, you were speaking on stage this week at the summit about edge computing, the promise of edge compute. Why the promise of edge? What is it about edge? Because in a way, we've been talking about edge for years and years. We've been doing CDNs towards the edge. What's new about the edge now? Why the focus on the edge now? What can it bring the industry?
So in the past, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G has been very singly focused on consumers, on data, on voice, SMS, web browsing. But 5G, the investment's large, right? And the consensus is the network is now more flexible. You can slice it. You can serve the vertical industry. When you start talking about serving the vertical industry, your business model started changing. The requirements started changing. So there's been a lot of efforts to transform the business practice of the network, really monetizing the fact that network and really closer to where the users are. That's how cellular was built, right? For that purpose. And then we're throwing the fixed network. You now has a potential to change what was a single focus network into a network of the future by serving, in addition to consumers, many verticals. So that's where the edge compute started becoming. You bet you we saw about caching. Yeah, Akamai has done caching for a long time, and they were up on the stage and talking about DDoS attack, how do you do that from the edge? I just read a white paper from AT&T on edge compute. They talk about there's now a lot of dynamic content being generated, unlike the static content that we could usually cache. And some of that calculation algorithm needs to be done at the edge because it's so dynamic. It cannot just be done at the core. So all of this AR, VR, so that's another good one, right? Typical latency is 100 milliseconds from the cloud to the edge. And AR, VR needs less than about 20 milliseconds to make it viewable. So you have a gap. So that's why some of that content from the cloud started moving to the edge.
So as you say, we have this opportunity to sort of reinvent the network and the network business. There's a lot of talk about use cases. And what struck me when you were speaking at the summit was, yes, we talk about use cases and applications and we can focus on them, but really the approach should be, let's get coverage. Rather than smaller coverage but specific use cases, do you advocate kind of total coverage in the same way as we rolled out total voice coverage?
Not quite. So what I meant was, the question was, where's the state of the edge compute? What I was saying is that today we're still at proof of concept early trial. It's still being very use case driven. So if you found a enterprise that, yeah, I'm game, I'm in it, then you develop a use case and some trial. We are seeing some of our customers going to actually early commercial deployment already, but it's still very one-off. You know, it's hard. That kind of stuff is hard to scale. What I'm hoping is people recognizing, the operators, i.e. recognizing this is a lot of potential, and convinced that the business model makes sense, then they would large-scale deploy it. In other words, rolling out edge cloud in where there is an edge, whether it's a CO, whether it's all the way out of the tower, whether it's at the EPC or between the RAN and the EPC, roll it out, and then it becomes today's model, which is coverage. Use as an example, right? You know, you cover the whole city of Chicago or Santa Clara, and then people get served that way. So it's really of a, I guess chicken egg, but we got to go through that use case justification, learnings, business model, how does the money change in hands, and I think then the operator will be comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm gonna do this.
And you're talking about money there, revenue is so very, very important. Edge is a way that telcos can leverage their key asset, which is the network, and the network means location, and location means proximity. Yeah,
if you look at, honestly, the one thing, whenever people ask me, the operator typically have a lot of central offices around, in the thousands, right? And then if you count their cell tower presence, you're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in some markets. And you compare with the typical data center, the scale is different. So you truly want to connect the car, drones, edge. What the network operator has spent tons of money on, it's a natural place to be. So it's really becoming monetizing something they already have, the location.
We also hear that the edge has a lot of potential for enterprises and enterprise applications at the edge. Getting telcos and enterprises talking together has historically been a little bit a tricky one. Do you think initiatives like this, we do need to embrace enterprises more?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We looked at ultimately for the operator to invest. I mean, edge compute, there's investment, right? You have to put in some server, compute smart server. You put it in. Who pays for it? Enterprise. So So I'm advocating that for our edge compute for TIP, we need to get more enterprise involved. Akamai is a good one, but we need to get more. Love to see GE, Honeywell, Bosch to come in, because they come in and say, this is what I need. Because what's people doing? Digitalization, Industrial 4.0, right? I was in Rio earlier this year. In the country, in Brazil, there were billions of dollars being allocated for digitalization. Even though the economy is in somewhat of a humdrum, little downturn, but still, even a downturn, people need to digitize because it's a way for them to keep up with the competition and saving money at the end. So in the process of doing it, you will see a lot of robotics coming in. And in China, there's the entire manufacturing plants are switching over to robotics. How does robots communicate? AR, VR, the amount of parts that's going to a car, going to a plane. Again, AR, VR really helps, right? So all of those things really cultivated that the industry, like ours, have to meet the needs of the enterprise by providing them the smart, what they used to, which is the cloud. A lot of the stuff that people have the information in the cloud, have that bring down to the edge to make them more effective.
Final question for you, and it's a final question from our presence here at the,
oh, really?
the second
last.
summit. You're the last question.
God.
I'm going to give you the last question. As a board member of TIP, and as you say, TIP's only been in existence since February 2016. We've come a long way in a short space of time. What would you like to see happen? How would you like to see TIP evolve in the coming years? What's going to be success for you?
For me, so we actually now have, I think we're in a very good trajectory. We have some early trials. The board had a meeting and talk about how to take the next step. I think we really start getting some into production phase. Not all, because some of the project group just started. Everybody has a different pace. We intend to closely monitor the progression of each project group, giving them grades. When it looks like somebody stall, we need to jump in and help push them forward. We need to keep going until something goes into production. The sooner it goes to production, I think will give the a jolt to the industry, and especially to TIP, who we're propelling it forward.
Well, we look forward to seeing the evolution of TIP.
Yeah, come back next year for sure.
We hope so. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.